Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Texas Real Estate and Finance Podcast. I am your host, Mike Mills, a local mortgage banker here in Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. I host this podcast each week, but I also help people every day achieve the challenging goal of homeownership. So if you ever have any questions or need help with a client, please feel free to reach out to me anytime. I am happy to help. Now, today we are breaking away from our usual real estate topics and diving into the other half of the podcast title, which is finance. Now, with the holidays wrapping up and family time still in everyone's world right now, we are continuing our conversation I started a little over a month ago with my daughter, focusing today on imparting crucial money management wisdom to the next generation. But before we dive in, let's ponder this. How are we really teaching our kids about money these days? Are we grooming them to become cogs in the corporate machine, or do we dream of having them have true financial independence? Now, in my parents' heyday, the baby boomers, they had unions, lush benefits, golden pensions, and early retirements with great companies that really seemed to care about their employees. But fast forward to today's generation, and we've got 401ks managed by large hedge funds, shorter vacations, long work hours, and salaries that barely keep up with the rising cost of living. So we might want to rely on schools to do all the heavy lifting when it comes to financial education. But let's face it, if your kids have to if you want your kids to have success with money in today's challenging work environment, we as parents have to take the lead and take charge, whether we like it or not. So what are we going to teach our kids? I mean, I work in mortgages and I talk to people every day about what it takes to buy a home with income, assets, and credit. And even I'm unsure if my daughter will be able to afford a house when she's ready to settle down and start a family. But knowing her, she might just decide to wander the earth like Caine in Kung Fu and going from town to town and getting in adventures. So today, here's the real crux of the problem. Money isn't just about how much you make. It's about what you do with it. The steps we take to show our kids how the system works might seem small, but it's the path I'm taking with my 16-year-old daughter to get her where she needs to be in the easiest, least eye-rolled and bruh-calling way possible. So, if I wanted to stand on our own two financial feet, my wife and I need to kickstart our financial education now, while we still have some of her attention, because once she flies the coop in a couple of years, those lessons become harder and harder to teach. Now, full disclosure, this is my first rodeo in guiding any child through this financial journey. So I am no expert. It's trial and error process for me too. And we're going to share all of it with you, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So without further ado, let me introduce my ever enthusiastic, but mostly disgruntled teenage daughter, Catey Jane. How's it going, everybody? All right. So obviously you are super pumped about being here today, as we can obviously tell. So tell me a little bit, all right, you're having to sit in here with me and go through this stuff. Okay.
Yes.
So last time you were mad because you didn't have enough time to prepare on all the stuff that we were going to talk about. Do you feel like you've had enough time today?
Yes.
Yes.
He sent me the text of what I will be asked, and I have prepared answers.
Okay.
But they're not fully thought out, so I'm feeling better.
Okay, good. So, I want you to really share, now that you're going through this the second time, I want you to tell everybody about how you really feel about this whole thing that I'm making you do, and what you may or may not be able to get out of it.
Like how I feel about being here right now?
Being here, making you do all this stuff. Go ahead. Unload. It's fine. You're in the trust tree.
I recently have started rewatching Grey's Anatomy.
Uh-huh.
And that's what I was doing before this. That's what I will be doing after this. And I could be doing that right now, but I'm not.
So you're saying you're upset because you can't watch Grey's Anatomy, and that's really all you're thinking about at this point?
Yeah.
Okay. So Grey's Anatomy is the issue.
Yes.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I'm glad at least, it's not because you hate me.
I'm just kidding. No, I don't hate you.
All right. So, the last time we kind of went through everything that we were going to do and go through and talk about, and we did a couple of those things since we last talked. So, I want to first start with, we had to go open a checking account.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So tell me from your perspective how all that went and what your impression of that was, what you thought it was going to be versus what it actually was, and things of that nature.
Okay, well, when we went, I was like, I didn't really want to go. There's not a whole lot of things I want to do. But
except watch Grey's Anatomy.
It wasn't that bad. I thought it would be like a little easier, kind of, or not easier, but like they wanted a lot more information than I thought I would need to give. Because I thought they would just need like my name and like your name and your account and then just like attach me.
Right.
But I had to do like my social security number and all this stuff. And we had to sit there and answer questions and do all this. So it wasn't that bad. It just like, it didn't even take that long. I wasn't really involved in it, but it was fun. I mean, it wasn't fun. I'm lying, but it didn't suck. It wasn't that bad. I thought it would be a lot like more difficult. It was more detailed than I thought it would be, but like I thought I would have to do all this stuff and I didn't really have to. I just had to answer questions.
So what did you have to do exactly? So tell everybody how we went through the process.
Well, it was a minute ago, but we went in.
Well, what did we do first though?
Oh, we had to schedule an appointment.
Well, did we have to schedule an appointment right away or did you started online, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I thought we could do it online, but I was wrong.
Okay. So you had to go online and you had to fill everything out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's when they asked you, do you understand the importance of your social security number now?
Yeah. I've been with all this stuff that we've been doing. I like have it memorized basically.
Yes.
Like I have to like, I use it so much. I never even knew I had one until like a month ago.
So you never even knew you had a social security number. And then all of a sudden now you have it by memory because you've had to use it so many times.
Yeah.
Yes. So we went through the process, we filled out everything online and then you thought at that point we were going to be done, but why did we have to go in? Do you remember?
Because actually I don't remember. Did I have to like prove that I was real or something?
Well, it had to do with your age.
Oh, because you had to be with me?
Right, because you were under 18.
Yeah.
And if you were going to be on a custodial account, which is what we kind of had, then you had to come in and I had to come with you.
Because I had to prove that you let me.
Yes, correct. It's basically like a proof that your parents are allowing you to do this because the only proof of age they have was your driver's license and you're under 18.
Yeah.
So we had to physically go into the location. Okay. So we fill out everything online, put in all your basic information, and then we find out that we have to physically go there, which you were just really stoked about.
Well, I thought that we could just do it online and then it was like schedule an appointment. And I was like, what?
Well, because most of your life is stuff that's done online, right?
Yeah, it is. Almost all of my life is done online.
Very rarely do you have to physically go somewhere and do it.
I know.
So then we had to go into the bank. All right. So tell us about that.
Well, it was a bank. It was like you'd expect. It was boring. And when I walked in, I was like, I don't want to be here. And then we went to the room and like I answered questions for the lady. And then she made you do it on her app, which I thought was weird because I thought she would have to do it on the thing. But I just don't get why we had to go in. I mean, I get why we had to go in, but like we basically did it all on our phones on the app.
Yes.
Like I feel like we could have just.
Well, but again, it comes down to proving because you're a minor opening up a checking account that we have to prove that you and I have the relationship and it's okay. And then they tied you to my account. So what she was doing through the app, the reason she had me do that is because all of my information, it was easier to set up if I initiated it through the app rather than her like filling out a bunch of stuff and then starting something brand new.
Yeah.
So now how much money do we have to put in your account?
$25.
$25.
I got $25 that day.
You got $25 that day for going through and suffering the process of opening up your own bank account. I'm such an evil person. So you got money for it though. So that wasn't terrible, although you didn't particularly care that much about that either. Just generally disinterested in the entire process, right?
I guess.
Yeah. How was our interaction that day?
He was mad at me.
Why was I mad at you?
Because I wasn't paying enough attention.
And why weren't you paying enough attention?
Because I didn't want to do it.
Because you didn't want to do it. So you were not happy about having to go through it. So now tell everybody about what kind of situation you had in having to pay for things prior to opening your account. And then now that you have an account, is anything different? Is it the same? How does that work?
Well, honestly, like I was thinking earlier of a reason why it's different, but it's really not. Like
So what did you have to do before? Explain that.
Before, like there on Busy Kid, there were like chores and stuff that I could like click.
Right.
And it would put money into my thing. And then every Friday I would get like payday and it would put the money into my savings. And then I could load my card. It would do like 90% of it went into savings and then like 10% of it, 90% went into spending, 10% went into savings. And then I could like put it on my card. But now I just like, it's the exact same thing. I just don't have like a payday and I don't click chores. So if I just like get like my birthday and Christmas and all stuff like money, I just give it to you and you just put it in my thing. So it's
Well,
like the same thing as Busy Kid, but
it is, but that cash now you can actually put in yourself, which we haven't done that yet.
oh yeah, I can go to an ATM.
Yes.
I
And
haven't done that yet.
you can deposit money into your account and you can take it out, whereas before you couldn't. And for me, do you know why it's better for me that you use your debit card than us using Busy Kid anymore?
Because it gave you fees whenever I
Correct.
wanted to put money on my card or take money out or put money in.
Right. So every time we made a transaction, if I loaded money into your account, or if I
Mhm.
even, like, when y'all would get cash, if I would take cash off that account,
Uh-huh.
because I would give you however much for your chores that day or that week or whatever. And then if you wanted cash because you want to go do something with it, then I would have to pull it off, but then it would charge me every single time. So
Yeah.
now I can just transfer money back and forth because we're on the same account it's with Bank of America, by the way. So now we can transfer money back and forth and I don't have to pay those fees. So it's always better. Right?
Yes.
So how much these days do you use cash versus a card when you have the chance to? And do you like either one better or worse?
Well, I use Apple Pay.
Okay.
I love Apple Pay because
Okay.
I don't even have to, like, it's just you just put your stuff in my phone, put the card in my phone, and like I just like tap my phone, and then I don't even have to get my wallet out. So
Really?
I Apple Pay
Okay.
for like everything.
For everything.
Mhm.
See, I don't use Apple Pay hardly at all.
It's so much better than using my card
Because
because you don't have to stick it in. You have to type in your PIN. You literally just tap your phone to like the little thing where you would put your card in, and
Yeah.
you double click and you scan your face,
Yeah.
and then that's it.
And that's it. Okay. See, we're learning technology hacks as we go too. I'm sure everybody else uses Apple Pay. I just don't use it very often because it's like, I think when you get older, you just don't trust stuff. So you just don't like, I'm always
And
worried
like,
I'm going to get to the line and it's not going to work. And they're like, well, how are you going to pay now, sucker?
Well, like it helps a lot because like in the mornings I get Starbucks, but I have to mobile order because if I wait in line, I'll be late to school. So I can just mobile order and I can pay through Apple Pay on my phone too. And I don't have to like put my card information in. I just double click and
So then you just roll up and get your order and you're done.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're streamlining the process. See, you're even better at that. You're better at spending money than me. Congratulations.
I do it a lot.
Yeah, you're learning that process pretty well. All right. So so we set up the checking account and got you your own little, your big girl card. You've got your own little your Bank of America card that you can use. We still haven't done any deposits yet. I think you're a little nervous about that, but we need to do that soon. Do you still have some cash from Christmas?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to put it in there?
Yeah, we can.
Okay. Well, we'll need to do that here pretty quick so I can show you how to do that
Okay.
too. So we haven't done that yet, but these are little bitty steps we're taking here. So next thing is we go set up a savings account.
Mhm.
All right. So we went to Bank of America to do a checking account because that's where my wife and I bank. We have a lot of our accounts there.
Yep.
And then where did we go to do your savings account?
EECU.
EECU. Now, do you remember why we decided not to do a savings account at Bank of America?
Because it's like hard. It would be harder to get it at EECU, so it's harder to get money from the savings account.
Right. So harder to get your cash moving around.
Yeah.
Right. So with a savings account, it's kind of like an out of sight, out of mind thing. Right. So you can set up when we'll get to this later on, but when you start, because now you're gainfully employed, which we'll talk about in a minute as well. You have a job.
I do.
But you can actually set up your accounts when you get with your employer, and they'll deposit a certain amount of money into your checking account, and they'll deposit a certain amount of money into your savings account if you want. You can set it up that way, so it's like split because they go direct deposit on everything. Used to, back in my day, we actually got checks, like physical checks. We would get a envelope with a check on it, and we had to like go physically to the bank to deposit it every Friday whenever we got paid. Now it just goes directly into your account. Seems really antiquated, doesn't it?
Yeah, I would not want to do
that. Can't just Apple Pay your way out of that one. All right. So was there any difference between going into EECU and setting your savings account versus going to Bank of America?
I mean, there might have been, but I feel like it was just the same thing. Just ask questions, open this, how much money do you want to put?
Yeah.
What's your social security number?
Yeah.
And that was it.
And on that day, I gave you a pretty good little chunk of money, didn't I? And were you appreciative at that point?
Yes.
Not really.
I was.
You didn't really know until we got out of the room, though, did you?
No. Well, because like they were doing it or whatever, and I don't even know if she said the amount. She's like, "Do you just want to put the minimum?" And you're like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
And then you're like, "Do you even know how much money I put on your thing?" And I was like, "No."
And
then you're like, "Ah."
Have you even gone and looked at it since then?
No.
No. So do you even? I mean, you know how much is there, but that's the idea, right? The idea is like when you have two separate accounts, that's nothing more. Convenience would make more sense for you to have your savings and your checking account to Bank of America together. And maybe one day when you get on your own, you want to be able to do that. Mr. McElroy's got a comment on his chat. He says, make sure you have all your alerts set up. So do you have your alerts set up?
Okay, I'm trying to figure out on my Bank of America. I don't know how to put it whenever you put money on my card. Because like I always like am asking you like, did you put like if I'll like give you money, be like, did you put it on my card? And you're like, yeah, I did. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't know how to.
Have you even gone and looked?
Yeah, I tried.
You tried?
And I get notifications if I like go to Sonic. It's like you spent $1.82 at Sonic.
Okay,
but like
good.
I know that I spent that money.
Right.
Like I don't care.
Right.
Like,
well, no. Why do you need to know that though?
Oh, in case somebody else spends my money.
There you go. Okay. So in case someone else gets access to your account, then you know that that money's going in there. So that's why you need that. There's probably a way to set up deposit alerts. I haven't gone in there to look at it, but we'll look at that too. Well, I'll make some notes here. We got deposits, and then I don't know where my pen is, but we got deposits, and then we've got to set up your alerts in your savings account.
Yes.
Okay. So now, what I was saying is that maybe one day it'll make more sense for you to set up your savings account together with checking and savings at Bank of America, because you can split them up there as well. But again, the idea is when money's not in the account, it's harder to spend.
Yeah.
Do you understand that? So it's just it's nothing more than just a human nature hack, essentially, because all you're trying to do is just, if the money's not there, it'll still be there. You still have, you know that you have the money, but if your regular account that you're using out of it, you get that little, do you get the low balance alert?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you get that all the time.
I've only gotten it twice.
You got the low balance alert 2 times?
Yes.
Okay, good. Well, at least you're getting them and they're coming through. So now going through all this, using your debit card now and having cash and having the 2 accounts, is it just something that you're just completely oblivious to, or is this something like you have a little bit of sense of like, I'm becoming a little bit of a grown up, or how are you feeling about it?
The ECU is like, again, I just don't pay attention to it because I'm not using it anytime soon. It's just like my savings, and I don't open the app ever. But Bank of America, I'm like, okay, like the card has my name on it. I'm like, I have a Bank of America card.
You kind of a big deal. You feel like you're
a little.
Okay, well, that's good. That's the idea. Is some of this is part of these little steps that we're doing and setting up. This is all simple stuff. None of this is incredibly complicated, but it's to give you a sense a little bit more of, hey, I'm in charge of my own stuff here. I got to control it. We can't really do budgeting yet because you don't have any expenses other than the fun stuff that you like to spend, nor do you have any income coming in yet to make sure that you have that. All right, Chad's got another tip, because do you know why Chad has all these tips, by the way?
No.
Chad he's a banker. He works for, I won't say who he works for because I know he's changed recently, so I'll change that up. But he said opt out of overdrafts also, if not already done. Just a reminder, it's for checks, ATM, and debit transactions only. If you use credit, if you use your credit portion, then you can overdraft. Okay.
Interesting.
But we're not going to have any overdrafts.
No.
Right?
Because I don't know what that is.
Yeah. Do you know what an overdraft is?
No.
What do you think it is? Think about the 2 words. What do they mean?
Over, which is more. Draft.
What's a draft? Where they take something. So if they
There's so many different definitions of draft.
If they took too much out of your account and you didn't have enough in there, that's an overdraft. So like if you have $10 in your account, you go spend 15, you're overdrafting your account.
Yeah.
And they can charge you for that sometimes too, depending on the account. So if you overdraft, it used to back in the day, again, old school stuff, we used to have to write checks. Okay. And remember, remember she asked you if you wanted checks? At the bank, she asked you if you wanted checks.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. No. Very few checks being written these days. But
$38 fee.
$38 fee. That's the overdraft charge. So the checks we used to write, we could float our accounts. So if like when I was in high school, if I had a paycheck and I was depositing it on Friday, I could write a check on Thursday for like $50 if I was going to pay for something. And because like if I was going to the grocery store, right? So then the bank, the grocery store would take the check, they would put it in their account, or, in their deposits or whatever. And then they would have to deposit into their bank account. And then their bank account would take a day or 2 to clear. So you could float checks where you could write a check ahead of time for money that you didn't have yet and then get it. Now,
was that allowed?
Yes, absolutely. It was allowed. Now they got smart to this though, because what they started doing was now they had scanners that they would run their checks through. So then they would verify in your account if that money was there. So it got, it was a hack in the beginning, and then they figured that part out. Yeah. And you can still write checks, but nowadays, if you don't have the money, and they'll know. So there's nothing that you can do now, but we used to be able to do that again, back in my day. All right. So let's talk about the book now, your homework assignment. So
Okay.
we went through our checking and savings adventure there. Again, very simple stuff, but just, this is the process of you learning the stuff, the deposits and alerts and all these things, learning what an overdraft is, which you found out for the first time today. Thanks, Chad. I guess obviously failed on that one. All right. So let's talk about the book. What was the book? Do you remember?
Like what the book was about?
What's the book called?
It's called Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Poor Dad. And
by
what's
Robert something.
Robert Kiyosaki?
Yep.
Okay. So what is the gist of the entire book based on just what you've read so far? We'll get into the first chapter.
How to get rich.
How to get rich. Kind of, maybe, I guess it's something like that along those lines. So, all right. So tell me about the very first chapter. What did you read in the first chapter and what did you gain? Like what was kind of the gist of it?
It was about him when he was younger. I think the whole book is about him when he's younger.
Kind of. I mean, he gets into a little more in depth a little bit later on.
This part was about him when he was like 8 or 9.
Yes.
And he was with his friend and he had his dad he was really smart, but he wasn't didn't have a lot of money.
Like a PhD.
Yeah.
Well, he had a good job, made good money. He just didn't manage his money very well.
And then his best friend's dad was really good with money. He got to 8th grade and that was it. But
so his functional education wasn't that great, but he had a lot of businesses. Yeah. Yeah.
And so they were trying to make him and his friend were trying to make money.
So do you remember on the very first part in the book, he actually went to his dad and asked him, do you remember the question he asked him?
It was like, how do I get rich or something? Because he was trying to go with his friends and they wouldn't let him because he wasn't rich. Yeah.
Yeah. So he was asking, how do I get rich? Mm-hmm. Right. And then do you remember what his dad told him?
It was like.
It goes directly into him making or doing what he did.
It was like, make money.
You have to learn how to make money.
Yeah.
Right.
Uh-huh.
And then
he just.
That was it. Right.
Yeah.
No other clarification.
No.
Right. Okay. So then
he made money.
Well, so then what did he do?
He created coins with
But how did he do that?
He melted down toothpaste tubes because they were made out of lead back in the day or something. And he melted them down and made coins.
Made nickels.
Yeah.
Yes. So he counterfeited money.
Yes.
So, but what, he actually went through, him and his friend had this entire plan on what they were going to do, right? They collected all of the used toothpaste tubes. They were going around to people's houses, knocking on their doors, collecting these tubes. And then once they had enough to put together, they set up this this refinery basically in their driveway, right? Melting down these tubes and taking the lead and then creating a cast. So then they could drop the metal or pour the lead into the cast, and they were making nickels.
They were.
I mean, look, regardless of if that was legal or not, that's a pretty good.
Smart.
I mean, he says make money they were making money, right? So just not the right way. You just can't quite make money. You can. I mean, these days they call that money laundering, and you can create dollars and all that kind of fun stuff. But all right, so he couldn't make money that way, right? So then they went to their friend or his friend's dad, right? The one that had the businesses and whatever. So what did that experience go like for him?
So they went to the friend's dad, and he was he got them a job at some convenience store, sweeping.
Yeah, it was his store.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And they made 30 cents an hour. They worked.
I don't think they made 30. I think they made
10 cents an hour. They worked 3 hours every Saturday, and they made 30 cents a week.
Right. This was 1956. So
and
even then it wasn't 10 cents. Wasn't a lot of money.
It was 10 cents was he could buy a comic book, and so he'd buy 3 comic books and then be done.
Yes.
And he had to quit his little league baseball, and he was all mad about it.
Yes.
And
he was ticked about it. And so then what did the guy make him when he wanted to come talk to him?
So then whenever he wanted to come talk to him, he made him make an appointment and sit in the office and wait. And then he had to wait an hour, and he was mad, and he went in and he was like, why are you making me wait? I'm this is child labor. Give me my money. I want more money. And he was like, this is what I'm trying to teach you. You don't want to, why are you having to come sit here and do this? You don't want to do this for your whole life.
Right. So what was the lesson in that directly, do you think?
It was to learn how to be your own boss and not be someone else, not have someone else be your boss.
Well, you don't necessarily, a boss isn't a good or a bad thing necessarily. It all just depends on the terms of your employment and how it works. Like my job, for example, right? So I work for a company, I have a boss, but my future and my income is tied completely to my work and what I do.
Yeah.
And if I produce and if I sell and I make good, make good choices, then my bosses, quote unquote, leave me alone. There is no, input from them. But if I don't, and I don't do my job and I don't have my self drive, then that's when I run into issues. Right. But that would be the same if you had your own company or you didn't.
Yeah.
Okay. If you have your own company, but you don't want to work, are you going to make any money?
No.
So what he was showing them was, yes, you don't want to have, I think the ultimate message is you don't want your fate tied to somebody else and what they think of you or what they want to do.
Yeah.
Right. That's the idea, is that because if you are completely dependent on someone else to give you a paycheck, for someone else to employ you, and for them to determine whether or not you're going to make your bills this month, well, then they have ultimate control over you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you have to show up to when you're supposed to show up. You have to do the work that you're supposed to do, whether you like it or not. And do you remember how he used a couple of the people that were already working for him as like kind of examples of what not to be? And even though it sounded kind of mean, it was a lesson he was trying to give to him.
Was it like the people who came and talked to him, like he fired them or something?
Well, when he went into the office and when the kid went to the guy and was upset about the fact that, that he had, wasn't making enough money and, didn't want to keep working there. And why wasn't he? Because he had told him he was going to teach him. He's like, you haven't taught me anything. I took less money so I could be here. Like, this is a bunch of crap. Right. And so he thought that was a good thing, because that meant that he had some fire. He was upset about it. Like, he was going to argue his point and fight for himself a little bit, which was why he was willing to teach him more, because he told his son to tell, Robert at the time, that once he gets fed up with having to work, because it took like 3 or 4 weeks, right? So once he got fed up with having to work every day and earning next to nothing, and he was ready to quit, that's when he needed to come see him, right? Because he wanted to see, all right, how much are you going to fight for yourself, right?
Yeah.
And this is a thing, that comes up often, and, sometimes people get upset about this, but are you familiar with something called the pay gap with men and women?
I mean, yeah, kind of.
Do you know what that is?
That like they get paid like sometimes like a little less than men.
Yes. No, I mean, it's a regular thing that happens. So do you know why that is, or what do you think? Why do you think that is? Do you have any idea?
No, maybe because they think men work harder than women. I don't know.
Well, so there's a lot of, I don't have the answer to this exactly, so I'm being very clear about that. But there are thoughts behind how this occurs. There are situations in life, most certainly, where a man is running the show he's the boss and he pays the female less than the male. That absolutely occurs. But there are also different circumstances in life that bleed into this. So, like, for example, I like to use attorneys as an example, where if you and I were the same age and we both went to law school and got our attorney, and you're a female and I'm a man, and we go work. Well, at some point, because I can't have babies, right? So at some point, if you want to have a family, then you're going to have to determine whether or not you want to sacrifice a little bit of work in order to raise a family. Right. And as a male, I don't have to make that decision often, because of the way things are kind of set up these days, and have been, forever. So, and more often than not, now there are circumstances where men stay home with the kids all the time, but you're still the one that's having to carry, deliver, and go through the process of doing that. Right.
Yep.
So because of that, I can keep pushing my career forward, and you kind of get stalled out for a period of time. Right. And employers will also look at that in that environment and go, well, and this is not the right thing to do, but this is what happens, is they go, well, the guy is going to keep working and not going to want to have kids, and the lady's probably going to want to have children at some point, so I'm going to give them more opportunities.
Yeah.
That absolutely happens. Okay. But the other side of it too, and this occurs a lot, and I've talked to your mom about this, and I talked to a lot of women about this, is that often women don't advocate for themselves enough, right? Because you have the right to go talk to your boss and say, hey, I deserve to make more money. I deserve to, have better hours and a better work environment. But often, women, this is a general statement, but often y'all will, just be like, well, I'm happy with what I have, and I don't want to rock the boat, and I don't want to cause any problems, right? Where guys are egomaniacs, and we bust through the door, tell them we're the greatest thing in the world, even though we're not most of the time. And so you've experienced that in dealing with the boys around you, right? The boys have every confidence on the planet.
Too much.
Yes, too much.
Yeah.
So that's what happens a lot of times in the work environment, where and that's what the message that he was trying to teach, that Robert at the time was just like,
Mhm.
you have to advocate for yourself. If you're not getting what you think you deserve, you have to fight for it.
Yeah.
Right. You can't just take what they give you and be quiet and don't say anything about it. So that was part of that lesson that he was teaching him, is he had those other employees that quietly waited, didn't say anything, didn't complain, and just took their low pay and didn't have a word to say about it. And he's like, look, I might be a jerk for not paying them what they're worth, but at the same time, if they're not going to advocate for themselves, then why would I go out of my way to do that for them, right? So that's a lesson that you want to take from that as well, is you have to fight for yourself. But at the end of the day, what he's really trying to tell them is you have to understand that you cannot, if you want to have freedom, right? Not necessarily, it's not necessarily about money, because you can have really good, high paying jobs. But if you're tied to what that employer wants you to do and where they need you to be every day, then that freedom is what can sometimes be more important in your life than the money itself.
Yeah.
Right. And having your own and creating your own path and blazing your own way is going to get you to that freedom in a much better way in a lot of cases than it would be being an employee.
Yes.
Yes. I mean, it's kind of like your mom and I, like, are we at home all the time, or are we around the house pretty often?
Yeah.
We get to see all your stuff, right?
Mhm.
Do you have friends whose parents can't always come to their things?
Yeah.
And why is that usually?
Because they're working.
Yeah. Because they have to go to their job and they have to work, but we can create that because we've created our own little world. So,
yeah.
So now they talked a lot about education in that. Do you remember what some of the conversations he was having with the rich dad and the poor dad regarding like education itself, and what kind of education is important versus what isn't?
I mean, not really.
No,
I don't really remember that part. I'm not.
So there's two types of education as the book relates to it.
Yeah.
There is go to school, get your 4-year degree.
Oh, is it like learning and then like actual like experience?
To some extent.
There was like a pyramid something about that.
Yeah. So it's learning in a school structured environment, right? Going to college, getting your degree, following your path, right?
Yeah.
So like, for example, right now, as of today, and there is no right or wrong answer to this. I know it's okay. But this is demonstrating a point right now as it goes today. What do you want to be when you grow up?
I don't know.
You have no idea.
No.
Right. So as the path goes right now, we know we can graduate from high school and you don't have to have any idea.
Yeah.
All right. But what's the thing about college?
You need to figure out what you want to do so you can do the major that helps you with.
Right. Because if you change your mind, which everybody does, by the way,
yeah.
What can happen with some of those classes that you take?
Like, what do you mean?
Well, what did you want to do before, like a while back? Do you remember?
Like physical therapy.
Physical therapy. Okay. Yeah. So what kind of classes do you have to take to be a physical therapist?
You have to like take a lot of like anatomy classes,
science, chemistry, biology, all that kind of stuff, right? You got a big fan club. Aunt Gail says you're doing great, by the way, and then Elizabeth says you're doing awesome as well. So it's,
thanks, guys.
It's not so terrible. So you have to go and figure out kind of, if you're going to be a physical therapist, you have to take certain classes to go along with that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, what did you tell me? Do you remember what you told me the other day? What you're kind of thinking maybe you want to do now? I mean, whether it's
like sports, like I just said that I want to do something in sports, like sports, like medicine or broadcasting or something. Yeah.
So let's say you went the broadcasting journalism route.
Okay.
So what do those biology and chemistry classes do for you if you went that route?
Not a whole lot.
Absolutely nothing, right? Nothing. Okay. But when you go to college, you realize you have to pay for those classes.
Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So if you decided for 2 years you were going to be a physical therapist and then all of a sudden decided you weren't, okay, well, then there's a good chance that half of that money that you spent on going to be a physical therapist is completely wasted.
Yeah.
Right. And if you're taking out loans to pay for school, right, then that's money that you're going to have to pay back for something that you didn't use.
Yeah.
So it's not that you necessarily have to find your way right away, but it is something that you have to consider when you go to college of what classes I'm going to take, because there could be a point where I change my mind, which is completely normal. Like everybody does that. I did it. Your mom did it. Everybody changes their mind. But you have to consider that, right? Mm-hmm. So what he was saying is, like, if you go that regular path of going to school and taking all the courses and getting your degree and going through it, that's great. But that really just puts you in a place a lot of times where you can now have a job.
Yeah.
Right. Because even doctors and who have to go to the most schooling possible, a lot of them will come out and start their own practice as a doctor, but they have to run the business side of it. Right. Mm-hmm. They're really good at being a doctor.
Yeah.
But maybe they're not as good at opening checking accounts and savings accounts, right?
Yeah.
And using Apple Pay because they never had to. Now that's small, silly little examples. But what I'm saying is there's two types of education. There's the education, what you need to do your job, but then there's the education of what you need in order to sustain your life, essentially, which is financial education.
Yes.
And right now in school, okay, you go to, we were at a 6A public high school in a very good school district.
Yep.
How much do y'all talk about money?
Rarely ever. I don't think ever.
You're halfway through your sophomore year.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I am taking global business next semester.
Okay.
But so far, nothing at all.
Nothing. I mean, nothing.
Nothing.
Right. And not that that's a good or a bad thing. It's not an indictment on our school district because every school is like this.
Yeah.
But so if you get any kind of education about money at all, where does it come from?
You.
Right. Me.
Yeah.
Right. And it's annoying as hell, isn't it?
Very.
Yeah.
I know I'll need it, but
yes. But when it comes from me and it comes from your dad, who's in your ear all the time about all kinds of stuff, you just kind of rolls off your back and you don't want to hear from it. So
Yeah.
I completely understand that. All right. But do you feel like at least you understand the importance of why this stuff matters as you get older?
Yes.
Yes. So it's just the messenger that's delivering the information right now that sucks.
Yeah.
Yes. But schools don't take that role and don't do that because there are differences and nuances to everything that isn't the same for everybody. But at the same time, there are some basic fundamentals that they could teach, but people don't put a big enough emphasis on it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And so you guys don't get the right, the right wow. So Miss Chrissy thinks you're amazing as well.
Thanks.
You got a super fan club today. Okay, so he's trying to impart on them about education that the financial part of it is important, right? The actual learning about checking accounts, learning how money works, what interest is, how credit cards function, all that kind of stuff, because that's going to be one of the biggest parts of your life, right? Whether you realize it or not. It's not that money is the most important thing, right? But if you didn't have money, how would things go?
Not really.
No, so well. And do you want to live with me for the rest of your life?
No. Absolutely not.
So that's an even bigger deal.
Yeah.
Right? That even makes a bigger deal on why the money's important. So where do you think that you're going to start going to look for, like, do you have any ideas in your head? Because I know you're not thinking about this ever, but just financial resources in general, where would you go to now? If you didn't want to hear it from me, where would you go?
Like, if I wanted to learn?
Yeah.
Probably like TikTok. I won't lie.
TikTok? Yeah. No, I mean, that's fine. What about, do you ever use YouTube to look at anything like that?
Not for that.
No?
No.
Do you use YouTube very much?
Yeah, but not to.
What do you look at on YouTube?
Just, I don't know, like YouTubers. I don't know, like makeup stuff.
Oh, okay.
Not very.
Okay. But you think you would go to TikTok more so than YouTube to get financial stuff just because you're on that more?
I just think it's easier to find exactly what you're looking for, because like YouTube videos can be 20 minutes long and cover this many topics. But if I want to know this much about this topic, TikTok's like 60 seconds. There's 60 seconds about this one specific thing.
Gotcha.
I think if I couldn't find something on TikTok, then I'd go to like Safari or Google or something and look it up, and then it pulls up a YouTube video and it has like a highlighted amount that to like watch.
So if you went to TikTok and saw something that piqued your interest but didn't answer all the questions, then
I'd go to YouTube.
You'd go to YouTube.
Yeah.
So you use TikTok as kind of like a browsing to find things and then go from there. If the way TikTok works is you can create your own environment, right? You understand that?
What you like and favorite and search, that is what your For You page is.
So I don't know that you'll probably never do this, but my suggestion to you would be like, once this stuff becomes impactful and you feel like there is a necessity for it, because you don't want to hear me talk about it all the time, is on your TikTok feed, occasionally I would like and or subscribe to some pages that talk about this stuff. Because, well, do you know, so what's happened to your mom? What did she tell you today? Do you remember this morning when we were leaving about the if I knew about this particular tea or whatever?
Oh, I don't know.
Why she bought all that cottage cheese?
Yeah, what is it? I don't know. She's just on like her health journey.
Yes,
I don't know.
But where is she getting all this from?
TikTok.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I've sent her a couple things that, because she asked me some questions about it, and we got into the red light therapy and all the other stuff.
I love that stuff.
Red light therapy is pretty awesome. But we got into all that stuff, and now all of her TikTok feed is protein intake and exercise types and red light therapy and all this stuff. So she's seeing it constantly. So what's happened?
So now she's buying stuff, and she's all into it now.
Yes. Because the thing is you have to put that stuff in front of your face.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Because me telling you all the time is boring as hell. Yeah. Like, you don't want to hear it. Right.
Yeah. Especially
because I'm the asshole that's telling you this stuff constantly and it's wearing you down. Right. But there are better ways to digest the information. And if your method, if you like TikTok and that's something that you're on all the time, well, if you just create just a little bit of your TikTok feed that has more of that, then that stuff will start becoming front of mind, because the further you can get out ahead of this as you move through having a job, going into college and all that kind of stuff, the further advanced you're going to be when it really matters. And I know right now that doesn't resonate because you're just like, whatever, bro. But there's a lot of brus. Okay. Whole lot of brus being thrown around. But whatever it is, right, then if you start now, even though it's not something you particularly like, it will tell you the way, it'll communicate it to you in a way that you do like, that is digestible to you.
Yeah.
Right. So even though it's like, I don't like eating healthy. Okay. I love eating. What do I eat all the time?
Oh, cheese.
Cheese.
You love cheese.
Yes. Chips and cheese is like my ghetto nachos, right? That's my favorite thing. But if I constantly follow health related things on all my social media platforms, then that reminder is in front of me every day. Hey, Chubby, quit eating that stuff, Chubby. Stop doing that. Right. And even though my nature is going to push me towards want to do that, I created that world specifically so it's a constant reminder that I need to stop.
Yeah.
Right. So even sometimes things that you don't particularly like, but that are important, you have to put that stuff in front of you. And using TikTok and using the social media stuff that you already use is a way to do that, so you don't have to keep hearing it from me.
Yeah.
So then when I ask you a question, you're like, blah, 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 blah. You already have the answer. Right. And then I just shut up. How nice would that be?
That'd be great.
Just wish Dad would shut the hell up. That would be awesome. So let's see. Anything else on the book that I wanted you to take away? Well, okay. Do you remember what they talked a little bit about fear and ignorance? Because this kind of relates to what we were just saying.
It was like if they were too scared to go out and like, not scared, but just like they're like, oh, I'm not like that big on money. Like it doesn't interest me, I guess.
Yeah.
Then like, it would, like they wouldn't really get very far, something like that. Well,
let me ask it to you like this. So, why do you think that people in general don't focus a lot on money and finance stuff? Like as a population, like why would you think that that's the case? Because it's boring, right? Yeah. That's part of it for sure, right? But then once you become an adult and you need it and it's not boring anymore, why don't people focus on it then?
Because they're like scared, I guess, or like they don't want to like get involved too much, I guess. I don't.
Well, no, you're on the right track. It's usually comes down because it's kind of complicated, right? It's a lot of information, right? Yeah. It's like, what's your experience been like sitting through this, right? It seems like a lot.
Yeah, it is.
Right. And it's like almost overwhelming to a certain extent. So it's best to just be like, I don't care about that. Just whatever. Yeah. Just tell me what to do and I'll do it. Right. That's what most people, that's how they look at this stuff. But the problem with that is it's done out of fear because they don't want to, number one, they don't want to feel dumb. All right. When we do this stuff, I'm dumb all the time. So I don't have a problem like saying I'm an idiot with this kind of stuff all the time because I am. But people don't want to feel stupid, right? They don't want to dive into something that they don't really understand because they don't really understand how interest works. They don't understand compounding interest versus amortized interest and how all that plays in a role. The stock market makes people want to roll over and go to sleep. The S&P 500. I don't need any more acronyms and numbers in my life. But there's a certain part of it. This is where Dad's conspiracy brain kicks in where, Here we go. But imagine a system if I wanted to make things to where you didn't want to access the information that I had, then what would be the smartest thing for me to do with that?
Keep it secret.
Do I need to keep it secret? Because I can't keep everything secret.
Just make it not interesting enough for people to like get
make
involved.
It boring and complicated and as little interest as possible, right? Because if I know all of it, it's like that's why law is the way it is, right? Because when you read a law brief, it's like it wants to put you to sleep, but it's complicated and it's got a lot of jargon that you don't understand and all of that kind of stuff. So all of that kind of puts people in a place where like, I don't want to deal with that shit because it seems like too much.
Yeah.
Right. But if you can get past that and sift through it, then you will be ahead of the curve on all that stuff. But it's just a hard code to unlock because it is, like you said, it's boring.
Very.
Right. It's very, very boring.
Yeah.
But it's what drives your entire life. And so I'm trying to tell you this stuff now while I still have you in the nest. So that way, when you get out, it resonates a little bit better. Because I promise you, when you're 24 years old, you will be calling me, asking me these questions at that point.
Probably
so. Okay. So, but that's where a lot of the ignorance comes from, is just that people, they don't want to learn it because it's boring. It's uninteresting. They just want to have their job and work and go play Fortnite or go,
I love Fortnite.
go to the Taylor Swift concert and just LBL, right? Live the
Yeah.
best life, right? That's what everybody wants to do. And that's great as long as you got somebody paying for it.
Yeah.
But
you don't always have someone paying for it.
And how excited are you about wanting to make sure that you marry for money? Is that on the top of your list?
No.
No. Right?
No, yeah.
Do you want to have to rely on your husband to?
No, absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. No.
Okay. And it's going to be better that you understand more about it than him.
Yes.
Right? Because you don't need no man that you got to rely on.
No,
right? You got to take care of your own business.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let's dive into, you now have a what?
I have a job.
You got a job.
I do.
Okay. So tell me about how you found the job, but tell me what you went through. And it wasn't a lot, but tell me some of the stuff that you went through before you found this one.
So,
and how you found it and what your process was.
This was like a while ago. I was on TikTok actually, and I get ads. Recently I've been getting ads for like college searching, like apps. But I got an ad for Indeed, which is like a job thing, and you can put in your resume. I don't have a resume, but like your talents and and it'll give you like jobs in your area. And so I was looking on that, and like Aqua Tots, which is a swim school, came up, and I was like, and it said urgently hiring, and I was like, okay, well that's good, because if they're urgently hiring, then they're probably not looking in, because I was like, I haven't had a job before. I don't do stuff.
You have no experience.
I don't. Yes. And so,
well, okay, back up just a second though.
Okay.
So you had two other things. So one is I gave you a job.
Oh God, yeah.
Tell us about that.
I was editing podcast. They were like, I was not editing your podcast, but I was uploading them into.
You were taking old podcasts and updating the information. Yeah. Yes.
And it was fine. It's just, number one, it was for you.
Right.
Which is hard because I can't separate you as my dad and my boss. And I couldn't do that. Because if you told me to do something, I'd be like, oh my God.
Yeah. Yes.
And like, I just couldn't.
You're right.
And one of the bad parts is I just did it on my laptop at home. And so it was really hard for me to like turn off all my stuff and just like, okay, like
focus on
lock
that.
in.
Yes.
And I could not lock in.
Okay. That's fair.
And then the other hard part was it was so boring.
Yeah. Because it was repetitive.
Yeah. You did the same exact thing over and over again. You had to upload it and you'd sit there and wait 10 minutes and you're just like, okay.
Can you imagine that that's some people's hell? That's their job.
I'm sure it is. And I never want to experience that as a full-time job. I could not do that.
Not that particular task, but just
the same thing over and over again.
Yes.
And so then I was like, okay, if I'm not going to do that, because at first I was doing it, but then I would do it once every day, and then it's turning like once a week, and then I just kind of stopped doing it, and I was like, okay.
Did I write you that hard about it though?
No, you didn't.
No.
You were just like, hey, are you going to do this? And I was like, yeah, maybe. And you're like, no, she's not.
And did I encourage you to get a job?
Yeah, you did. You're like, if you don't want to do this, you got to do something.
And why did I encourage you to get a job?
Because you knew that I didn't like that at all.
Well, I knew that, but why else?
So I don't know.
It kind of relates to the book a little bit.
How? What? Like, what do you mean?
If you're having to go work for somebody, right?
And
go experience what you experienced on your first day.
Yeah.
Which wasn't terrible, but.
No, wait, like my first day at Aqua Tots?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that sucked too.
Right. But it's the idea of like, I gave you an opportunity to do something that we could be flexible with it. And now you're having to go to a place where you have to physically show up and you have to walk in, you have to be there. And so you have a little bit of a perspective on two different ways to do this.
Yes.
Right. So what I'm trying to do is help you understand what it actually is to be an employee.
Yes.
Right. I gave you a chance to kind of work on your own and make money and be freelance, as we would call it. Right. And you couldn't focus because you were at home. So you needed to get out. And I was annoying you, okay, which all of this stuff was fully expected, right? But I was paying you more than what you're making now.
Yes,
right?
You were.
Okay. So, and you had the freedom to do it whenever you wanted to. You just couldn't discipline yourself enough at this point to do it.
Yeah.
Which all of that was fully expected.
Yeah.
Okay. So, all right. So then you find about it Indeed. Now, originally you tried to go somewhere else to get a job though, right? What happened with that? Remember the Rally House deal?
Oh yeah, I wanted to work at Rally House, and because that was on Indeed too, actually. But I had a friend go and apply, and they didn't want they didn't want like after school shifts. They
Right.
were done. They had all those. They wanted like morning people.
Right. And as a
And
high
I
school,
have school, so
that's right.
I
As a
can't
high
do
school
that.
kid, you have limitations on what you
Yes.
can accept. Right. Okay. So then we go on Indeed. Aquatats is urgently hiring. So
Yeah.
then what happens?
So then I just like applied. It was really easy. I just like literally just clicked a button, and it was like, okay, put in your resume if you have one. I was like, didn't have a resume, and it's like extra notes, and I was like, hey, never really had a job before, but I was a cheer coach, so I can teach kids. And then she reached out through the app, and she was like, hey, like, we'd love for you to come in. When can you come in? And it was kind of like slow responses because that app like isn't, I mean, it was used, but like it probably would have been easier if I went in person. I just never really got around to it before she answered me. And so I went in, I got interviewed, I guess. It was just like, what are your skills? What are you not good at? Like, have you had any jobs before? Like, what were the good experiences, bad experiences? And so I was like, told her all this stuff. And then she was like, okay, you have the job. And I was like, okay. So then she's like, when can you work? And I practiced Tuesday, Thursday. So I worked Monday, Wednesday. I was going to work Fridays, but y'all thought that I shouldn't work Fridays. So I have a day off and I won't get burnout because I have tournaments on the weekends.
And you haven't experienced that yet, but do you think that was probably a good move?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely do.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I went in. First day was yesterday.
First day on the job?
Yep. I sat in an office for 4.5 hours and watched videos.
You were quote unquote training.
Yes.
Right? Yes.
So I get paid $13 an hour while I'm training. So I do the video trainings, which is like I have to watch the classes and like learn the like how to hold the kids and like do all this
Aquatats
stuff.
is a swim school, by the way, in case that wasn't clear. Yeah.
And I have to learn all the different levels and how to document kids' progress and do all this stuff. And then once I learn all that, then I'm like in water training and I get like a little plastic fake little baby doll. And so then I do that. And then I like am observed while I teach a class. And then after that, then I'm like certified. And then I get my little thing. And then after I'm certified, I get $14 an hour.
Yeah, moving up in the world.
So, but right now I'm just training.
Yes. So. Okay. So what was your experience like sitting in the office by yourself training?
It was so boring. Oh my gosh.
But
and
necessary.
It was.
Yep.
And I paid attention. It just like, because I'm like, okay, 4 hours isn't that much. Like I'm in school for 8 hours, like whatever. But also 3 of those hours are volleyball. And like I'm in school, like my mind is like working, like I'm doing things and I'm like, okay, like I have to do this. I have to get good grades. Like there's a test on Friday. I have to pay attention. And I still obviously paid attention to this, but this, like there weren't a whole lot of like interaction stuff. It was just like hour-long video. And I'm just like, oh my God, like I can't.
Yes.
Like it was rough.
Yes. It's a lot when you have to sit in there for hours and hours and go through it. And the good thing about this job will be though, well, there's good things, but then there's one really bad thing. Can you think of what the one really bad thing is about this job?
Like this specific one?
Just yes, this specific job as it relates to, think of it as it relates to me.
Oh God. 'Cause this actually, he did this when he was you weren't my age, but you were.
I was a little older than you.
Yeah.
But close to it. No, I was about 17 when I started.
But he was a swim school instructor as well. So.
Yes. I ran a swim school for years.
He did.
Yeah.
So he's like, oh, like what are the holds still the same? Like, I don't know. Gosh.
Yes, it is going to be a bit of a beating. I'm going to try my best to not inundate you every day with questions, just because, I mean, of all of the jobs you could have chosen, this was probably the worst as far as it relates to me beating you down about it. So,
no, yeah, definitely.
So just be ready. But you chose it.
I did.
So it's on you.
I take full responsibility.
That's right. But the good thing about this job, though, is that it is active, right?
Yeah.
Because you're in the water, you're working with the kids.
Yes.
Right. It's also different.
Yeah.
It's not the same job every day.
No.
Right. The same kids, same classes.
And that's kind of why I wanted to do it, because I really like younger kids. Like I like them a lot. And I couldn't do something like I don't know, like
folding shirts,
work at Chick-fil-A or PacSun and like just folding clothes. Like I want to like do stuff, and it's like I can actually do stuff, you know.
So. Well, and this will be good. Do you remember why I told you why this is a good thing as far as like you growing into other roles later on down the road? Not with this job in particular, but
it helps learn how to deal with kids, I guess.
But it's about communication, right?
Yeah.
So
and like with the parents and stuff.
Yes. So you learn how to talk to adults and communicate with them well about the thing that they're most passionate about, which is their child, right? So they're everything serious and a big deal, right? And you can't pretend like it's not, because if you do, they'll get really irritated with you real fast, right? So it's always a big deal, but that's a good communication tool, because now you have to talk to children, which is its own other level of thing. By the way, communicating with kids is way more fun than communicating with adults.
No, I know.
Well, that's right.
I was a cheer coach. I did all of that. I'm sure it'll be very different, because I didn't really interact with the parents at all, but it was different. Hanging out with the kids, but I mean, it's fun, like talking to them and stuff. So.
Yeah, and kids are awesome. They just tell you whatever's on their mind.
Yeah. Oh, brutally honest.
Yeah.
There's no. I got a little bullied.
Yeah. Yes, they're definitely rough. They're definitely rough. But you also communicate with kids, so now you have to learn how to communicate with adults, right? Because it's even, why have I always told you guys, part of the reason that we don't go, not that there's anything wrong with private schools at all, but why have I said to you specifically why I prefer you to be in public school versus private school? Do you remember?
Is it because there's like all different kinds of people and stuff?
Yes.
And,
all different walks of life, people from all different backgrounds that you have to, I mean, everything's a bubble to a certain extent, but people that you have to be able to interact with, because once you get out of our bubble in our little world, then you have no idea what you're going to run into and who you're going to have to interact with and deal with and all that kind of stuff. And so interacting with people and having exposure to different types of environments is important when you're young, because then you can learn how to deal with it when you get older. And this is the same thing, because communicating with children and then turning on a dime and being able to turn around and communicate with an adult, in that same situation is a skill, and it is something that you'll develop. And then, of course, it comes down to, tricks of the mind on how to get kids to do certain things and all that kind of stuff. That's going to be fun with it, that I think you're really going to enjoy. But it's going to take a little time for you to settle in with it. And then once you start getting your paychecks, have you even thought about taxes yet?
No, I did. Because I did the math, because I don't know if I should be talking about this, but I don't really care. So like I did $13 an hour times 4 is 52. I was like, okay, well, I'm working 2 times a week, so that's $104 a week. But then taxes, I'm like, I don't know how much is that, like, but like I know that I'm not going to get $13 an hour.
It's somewhere between 20 to 30%.
Oh God, bro. That's like gonna suck.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now the good news is that most of that you'll get back.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to be in a high enough tax bracket. Now you can set it up in where they don't take any money out, and that's not a bad thing. But if you do it that way, then you'll get like this. It's almost like they're saving money for you, and you'll get this little check at the end of the year. So you'll get like $1,000, and you'll be like, oh. Right?
Yeah.
So it's almost like its own little savings account for you. Now the government gets to make interest on that, which, that's a whole other thing down the road we'd get to. But ultimately, having them withhold that money, it's going to suck because your paycheck is going to be a lot less.
Yeah.
Right. But you'll get a lot of that back because you just don't make enough money to be taxed at that level. But that's usually what they hold out from you. And you'll feel the pain of that when you first see it. Yeah. It'll be sad and depressing. But it's a good experience for you to go through this, to have a job, to start working. And, you're a very busy kid. So you got a lot of stuff that you're doing between volleyball and school. And now we're adding a job to it. So I'm probably seem like, the hard driving, terrible parent, but this is, look, I only got a couple more years with you, and I gotta get all this. I gotta cram all this in now while your brain's somewhat developed. I mean, with your brother, it's going to take forever because he's going to be a moron.
Yeah. Good luck with him.
Good luck with that one. So at least with you, I've got a little bit of cognitive functional right now. Most of us men are stupid until we're like, I still am, basically. So I don't know that we ever figure it out. But so all right, well, that's pretty much it for today. Next time we're probably gonna do this around spring break, because we can only do it during holidays when you don't have school, because it's in the middle of the day. But we're gonna get into, probably talk a little bit about how it was to make your deposits. We're gonna talk probably some more about some taxes. We may actually have some budgeting stuff that we do at that point, because you're gonna have to be driving, and now you're gonna be spending money on things and getting money. So how much are we taking in versus how much are we going out? We're gonna keep reading the book. Even though you find it super annoying, but I know you love to read, just not this stuff.
Not that stuff.
I want you to try to curate your TikTok feed a little bit and see if you can add a few more of these topics to it, to see if you pick up some stuff and have some questions about some things that otherwise you wouldn't have. But this was a lot better. You did much better today.
Thanks.
You talked.
I did.
Was it horrible?
It wasn't that bad.
Okay. It's not that terrible,
Not
right?
that bad.
I mean, I know coming into it, you should have seen her face when she walked in here. This was like the last thing that she wanted to do today.
I want to go watch my Grey's Anatomy.
Yes. All right. Well, now you can go watch Grey's Anatomy. All right. Well, thank you everybody for sticking around. We're going to do another one of these in a month or two and keep going down this road. So if y'all have any questions or want to ask anything, if there's anything we can interject, if I can make her do more stuff, please send me some advice. I'm happy to take it. So sorry you had to come in.
Oh my God. He got a soundboard and he doesn't know how to act now.
Got a soundboard. I'm super excited. I mean, I've had the soundboard. I just don't usually use it in the podcast. So, all right. Thanks, everybody. Y'all have a great rest of your week. We will be back. I'll be back on Friday next week. Or Thursday, I should say. I'm having Brad Bingham, my insurance guy, come in, and we are going to, and great friend, and we're going to talk about why insurance premiums have literally gone through the roof. Insurance is even more fun than finance. Who's excited? But if you're having to spend a ton of money on car insurance, which I am because you're expensive, and a ton of money on homeowners insurance, which we are because we own homes, and anything else, then you definitely want to tune into this because the premiums are going through the roof and everybody's mad about it. So we'll find out why. And Brad's one of the smartest guys I know when it comes to this stuff. So everybody have a great weekend, and I will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.